How are things? It's been a while since BasherCon.
I know it's been busy. It's been the books are rolling in,
Hmm.
and then the one final twist I didn't um Scott and Sherry, they've kind of, been with me on this and saying let's do this and pushing it to go to where we do more lives and do interviews and, you know, um just enjoy ourselves more
Yeah.
doing this. So,
No, I'm all for it. So Instagram, I guess, changed their parameters, I guess, on who could go live and who couldn't. And I would do live stuff. I'm not gonna say all the time, but I've done some live things before. But then they stripped it from me because I don't have enough followers yet, which is
yeah, yeah.
unfortunate. But I think they said you have to have 1,000 now in order to be able to go live. Um, you obviously have a little more than 1,000. So, but
Just a
anyway, yeah,
few.
no, live stuff is fun. You get what you get. So
Yeah, I mean, we're getting some joining, so that's really cool.
no, it's all good. Absolutely. No, I'm gonna do like a video and I'm trying to do like a promo thing for myself. I almost prefer the live because it does two things. It really makes you think about what you're gonna say and it kind of slows you down. There's kind of a reminder that look, I'm just a human. I got flaws. So I was like, don't send me the questions. We'll just talk and whatever happens, happens. But
Yeah.
but live, and I've got this like outtake roll a mile long of you know either slipping in something I shouldn't have said or just saying the wrong thing or I just don't think it's the right. It's just kind of a hassle. Takes
Right.
more time because those lives you're pretty much done. All you got to do is post and you're good to go.
Yeah. Well, I think we're getting, I mean, I'm seeing several popping up on here too. So we got one more minute and we'll do the big introduction.
Okay, sounds good.
But
I think.
I'm so excited about this because I asked Chat GPT to do a little digging on you too and see
We'll
how
see if
close.
it's
I
true or not.
know. I want to
There's
see
a
how true
disclaimer
it
on there. It
is.
says it's not always accurate. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I did
All
not play
right. Well,
basketball. Yep, I'll cheat.
here we go. It's 8 o'clock. I'm excited today to welcome Chris Mullen to the Instagram Live. He is a Texas-based author who has got, see, we've got the Rowdy series, we've got
Mhm.
the Cass Callahan series.
Yes,
You did a collab with Robert Vaughan, and we've got the short horror western now, right?
that's right. Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
So the big thing that I asked ChatGPT was to give me a little bit of
Uh-oh.
background on you, and it told me that you taught kindergarten.
Yeah, actually, okay. So score one for chat for getting something right. I did. So prior to being an author, I was a teacher for 23 years. I started in kindergarten and I did 10 really fun years in kindergarten, but I actually dropped a grade lower to pre-K
Oh,
and spent most of my time in a pre-K classroom. So imagine coming in the first day and seeing this, 6'4", male in the classroom and asking for Mrs. Mullen, and he comes up to you and says, "You know what? She's not coming in today, but I'm your guy." I got some funny looks from some of the parents who missed those preschool meetings, whatnot. But man, it was a lot of fun. Truth be told, if I could write and teach, I still would. But in order to put 100% in both, it's just not possible.
so you are not teaching? Do you teach at Texas A&M too? Are you like
No,
adjunct
no,
or do
no.
you no?
Well, that would be cool. No, I go and scream my head off at their football games.
Oh,
So yeah, my son is a sophomore there right now. My older son just graduated in May, and we are a family full of Aggies. So
okay. So
oh, yeah.
I noticed your hat, and I've seen
I
Texas
did.
A&M stuff come
Yeah,
up
I
on
wore
you.
the I wore the shirt today instead. Usually I wear like a Rowdy hat or something, but I figured we'll just go with this. It's kind of like my security blanket. It's a thinking
Yeah.
hat, it's a writing hat, and I just felt like wearing this one.
Well, interesting fact. So I used to teach kindergarten too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so it does. So my question would be is how you feel. I feel like as a kindergarten teacher, you have to have an imagination that's limitless. And do you feel like that has helped your writing career to be able to think that big?
Well, when you are a kindergarten teacher, you're right. You have to have that limitless imagination. You also have to have the opportunity to explore that. And some schools over others, it's just different. I was fortunate enough to teach in a private school where basically, as long as I got everything done I was supposed to in the curriculum, I could get the message across in any way. So yes, you're right. You have to have a very good imagination. But for me, also drawing off those kids' imaginations. They're sponges. They have all sorts of ideas I mean, I could name 1,000 ideas right now, and all that builds together to create this one massive like room of creativity. So that's what I always was always excited about, because each year it was new kids, it was new thoughts, and based on some of the stuff we did, just the ideas were limitless. So yeah, and we read a lot, right? So we read, of course, everybody reads Dr. Seuss, Robert Munsch, Bill Martin Jr., Tommy DePaulo, all those guys. The stories that they write were certainly imaginative. I mean, heck, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I've got a thriller right now, kind of based a little bit on
Oh,
that. It's coming up, not specifically on that, but weather related, something like a global catastrophe type of a deal. But you think about it, it's like Killer, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
yeah, that's so cool. So mixing Western with the YA genre isn't something that is common. Like, in so I guess, do you like being able, and I will say this too, that I know in the Cass Callahan series that there is a moral lesson with it. I haven't read any of the Rowdy yet. So, but I'm going to guess from what I've read about the Rowdy series, there is a moral lesson too. So do you like, I mean, how does it feel as an author to be able to put that moral lesson in, not only just into a Western, but like into the hands of the young adults, and to be able to, like, do you enjoy that? Do
Oh
you?
yeah. Well, for sure. It's a kind of an extension of the classroom in a sense. I write the Rowdy. So I didn't set out to write the Rowdy book specifically to teach a lesson. I didn't even really know what I was doing when I wrote the first book. Rowdy was born in my kindergarten classroom in 2002. If you don't mind, real quick, I'll give you a quick
Go right
backstory
at it.
on Rowdy. So as a kindergarten teacher, we would celebrate certain festivals and special days at our school, and one of them was Go Texan Day. And if you're from Houston, you know all about the rodeo and all about Go Texan Day and how everybody dresses up in their cowgirl and their cowboy outfits and their Western wear. And a lot of the schools go all out, And so at our school in particular, we had a day where we had the chuck wagon roll in and we did all sorts of Western activities. That being said, for farewell that when you have a bustin' routine, especially with the younger children, they just kind of go, ah! but before too long. And so at the end of the day, we shut things down about a half an hour early. And so we're like, okay, we've got this just downtime. How do we get them to the end of the day without them, just climbing the walls? So I said, okay, cowboys, cowgirls, everybody to the carpet. We're going to have a story about about a young man that lives way out west, past the triple cactus on the ranch called the Circle R. Gather around the campfire and let's get the story rolling. Of course, was the first thing, some of the kids go, Mr. Mullen, there's no campfire. Quick race to the construction paper, crumpled up the red, the orange, the brown. Voila, you've got a campfire. So we've sat around, we started telling Rowdy stories. Oddly enough, he came back the next day, and at the end of the day, they're like, Mr. Mullen, how about Rowdy? And with these Rowdy stories turned into what was meant to be a story time filler for the end of the day, into 9 years of telling different Rowdy adventures. And so when I went to write the first book, I thought, well, how do I always say we because I'm talking about me and Rowdy. How do we explain how Rowdy got all of these? How did he acquire all the things that he got? The ranch, the gun, the knowledge, the survivability in a time when, man, it was just rough, especially if you're an orphan. And so book one is actually written in flashback. You start off seeing Rowdy in the porch, getting ready to go on a hunting trip, but there's a delay, and so this affords the first opportunity to think back and how, what was a massive thing that weather event rather that he experienced. Well, you take it back to the night where he was on the river right after he was orphaned, and it goes on like that. The skeleton of the book is exactly like what I told the kids, as far as like if you were to outline it. Of course, the adventures are different. The aphorisms are roughly the same. As we were telling the story to the kids, it became pretty clear that I wanted to have a role model for these students that wasn't a cartoon character. Yeehaw, SpongeBob is funny, but we can do better. And
Hmm.
so Rowdy was the kind of kid, kind of character rather, that was almost had a little bit of touch of Miss Frizzle in there, to be honest. If you're familiar with Miss Frizzle, it's like get
Yeah,
messy,
yeah.
make mistakes. So for Rowdy, it was about making mistakes, but how did he react to those mistakes? Did he hide behind himself? Did he say, well, I'm just a kid, kids are supposed to make mistakes, or did he stand up for himself and take responsibility for his actions? And so we started introducing some of these little aphorisms, these life lessons within the Rowdy series, and it just continued as we went on to books 2 through 6. Each one has a little different flavor of life lessons in there that younger readers certainly can draw from. It's not the kind of book that is just for young readers. Yes, it's YA, but most of my readers are adult. They appreciate the action, the adventure, the Western flair. Some have said, Mr. Mullen, or Mr. Mullen, Chris, it's not really a Western. It's done in a Western theme. You've got these survival stories, these action events. It's Western, and let's face it, it's late 1800s, 1880s. The main setting for the story is Lincoln, New Mexico. Book 1 takes you down the Mississippi River. You have a stop in Dodge City, and then a stop in Lincoln, New Mexico, and that's where the Circle R Ranch was established, and that's the hub for all the other stories. One thing I didn't do, though, in the series is attach Rowdy to any historical figures. While everything is historically accurate to the times and weaponry and clothing, and did the trains go to Lincoln? No, they didn't. They went as far south as Las Vegas, New Mexico, and then you had to take a train, or rather, pardon me, you had to either take a wagon or stagecoach, or take your horses to get to kind of wherever you're to Lincoln specifically. But it was very important to make sure everything was accurate because, like I said, a lot of my readers are older. They're going to really catch on to those details. And, while I might have written one Western, they probably read 500. And
Yeah.
if they're really a Western aficionado, they're going to call me out if even the smallest thing is wrong. And so, so I'm not quite sure where this started. I just kind of rambled. But the idea was that we have these stories that will teach a lesson to the students, but also be entertaining for adults. And I've mentioned before that we all remember the movie Shrek. The littlest little littles loved it because of the color and the silliness. But the adults were into the music and into the subtle innuendos that you just didn't really want to share with the kids. But it was something for everybody, and that's what makes Rowdy really, really special.
We have a question that's about Sherry's asking, what research did you do for that time period?
Right. So, first of all, I'll be honest right up front, I'm probably the least read Western writer or author you're going to meet. It's always hard for me. It was always hard for me to read a lot fast. But that being said, I grew up on Western film. Any kind of John Wayne movie, Clint Eastwood, Sunday Morning Show, Gene Autry, all those guys had a massive amount of Western movies that I would watch. The other side of the coin was my father. Guy's 94 years old, still going, actually still writes with me. He's still one of my biggest critics and fans, both in the same coin today. But he would tell me stories based on Louis L'Amour, Zane Grey, all these Western stories that he would write. So specifically for research, I like to go to the locations. Now, I can't go back in time, but for me, geography, setting, the feel of a place, you're not going to change the way the wind blows, on the prairie. So I was that guy that if you're driving down any number of highways between, Dodge City and Lincoln, New Mexico, I was the guy standing on the side of the road that you're like, is he going to the bathroom? No, I'm not going to the bathroom. I'm getting a lay of the land. I tried to take a lot of the back roads from one place to the other. So being on location is very important. To the Cass Callahan series, that was super important because those stories are based out in West Texas, right along the border between Lajitas and Presidio. And so being able to be out there on location, see the sights, see the lay of the land, and be able to paint a picture, and again, for Rowdy as well, to be able to paint a picture that says, this is where the story happened. This is how it felt. These were the things. And with Rowdy specifically, before I put the first book out, it was very important because one of my first stops was at Fort Dodge, which was right outside Dodge City initially. So this is the very, very first copy when I self-published way back in 2020, but back in 2020. I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, I'm a teacher. I can do it all myself. I can do the gray. But if you go in here in the where the summary is, it says in 1883, we're thrust to the mercy of the Mississippi River. Rowdy floats away. Well, I went to Fort Dodge, and the very first plaque I saw in the fort was Fort Dodge shuts down in 1884. So there, that was so luckily for me, I didn't reference the date anywhere else in the story except for on the cover, so that was a quick fix. Um, it's kind of obscure in the late 18 mid early to mid 1880s, and so but that was an important detail because had I had that on there, that would have been certainly something to be called out and says you're not doing your job as a writer and a researcher.
Do your students who started with you in the classroom with the Rowdy series, do they still check in on see how Rowdy's doing? Do they?
I have, thanks to Facebook and social media, I do have some connections with some of my former students. Not as many as I'd like, only because when you take a group of kids from one part of the year to the next, they just grow so much, and you grow together as a family. But as kindergarten, you're forgotten. Let's face it. I mean, it's such an early memory. If they were eighth graders, it would be an easy thing to keep up with because they're just older, their brains are more developed and they're more with
Yeah.
it. But as kindergarten, they remember the fun things, the flashy things, and I have had some kids in the past show up at book signings. I don't recognize them because they're 20 years old, and maybe some of them may be hauling their own kids in. I'm like, nice to meet you. Like, you don't know this, but I was so and so in your kindergarten class. I'm like, no way, that's awesome. But anyway, yeah. So a few, and it's really cool to see. Not many remember the Rowdy stories, which is unfortunate. But with the books now, we can have a little memory maker for everybody. So
So Rowdy is in the late 1800s. The Callahan series is current.
modern day, current,
So
yes.
give us a little background on the Callahan
Oh
series.
man, so the Callahan series was suggested to me by my publisher, Wolfpack Publishing, as kind of a challenge to jump into the contemporary Western mystery side of things. Um, I'm not a rancher. Yeah, I live in Texas, but I'm the least. I wear baseball hats and blue jeans. That's me. So I thought, okay, what if I have a character that is a baseball hat, blue jean wearing kind of guy from the city, but gets not displaced, but relocated out to the west. So Cass Callahan is a detective. His wife Raven was a school teacher, and sure enough, they were Houston based, but did move out to West Texas on a ranch they inherited from a family member. And it's a place that Cass went in since he was a kid, so he's kind of familiar with the area. But again, when you're 8, 9 years old and you're out in a ranch, you remember kicking rocks and the first snake you had to run away from, right? So, but for him, it's relocating out there. Um, and he's just out of his elements, like out of the fire into the fire, out of the frying pan into the fire, and so that's kind of where we go from there. He gets out there. There's dead bodies on the property. He ends up having to get on board with the local sheriff's department to kind of oversee the investigation. I did leave out a very important part, and I don't want to give the whole story away. And I do talk in circles, so for everybody watching, I apologize. I just kind of ramble on, but let me back up even further. Thank you for having me on. You give me such a great introduction. I didn't say that. We just kind of got into everything. But no, so Cass gets out there with Raven. She was the victim of a home invasion and obviously survived, but was very traumatized by the event. And so the solitude of West Texas, where they were going, they thought would be good for her, her healing. But they get out there and the locals don't like them. Like, there's their city folks out here trying to run a ranch. We don't want you guys around. The foreman on the ranch is like, stay out of the way. You're going to mess something up. And well, Cass does, So, and the law enforcement, they're like, oh, another possibility of somebody coming on board and can help us out because we're just understaffed. And Cass didn't want to do any of that until, like I said a minute ago, the dead bodies show up, and then he doesn't let things go halfway. Once he got involved in the investigation, he just uncovered a hornet's nest of issues that stemmed across the border, which caused him to be able to track down the killers in book one, but then is pretty much sparked some Sicarias that come over and kill order for book two, which leads him on a lone wolf McQuaid style dive into Mexico in Hunting El Despiadado in book three. We take a step back. We change the book cover. We change the storyline in book four. It's called Darkness Rising, and that was a fun one because it was written from start to finish, all in first person. It shows how Cass now is the one struggling, and how Raven has really blossomed and grown as a woman, as an independent, just a tough worker, even on the ranch. She really blossomed. I mean, more than I ever expected. She was like my surprise character, and I just love her to death. But Darkness Rising takes you in a different direction. It also says, you know what? Yeah, we're bordered with Mexico, but It's an international border. It's not just a Texas-Mexico border. And then the last story, Texas Terror, in the series actually brings everybody back to Houston, or cast back to Houston rather, hot on the trail of what ends up being cyber terrorists that are looking to take down the power grid of Southeast Texas. And yet this was all stemmed by an investigation he was doing over on the west side of Texas. And it's a neat twist. And neat how they all come together. And there might be room for a book 6 down the road, but it's just not in the wheelhouse right now.
So one of the things for me as a female reader of, and we call them boy books, like
Okay.
it's kind of a common thing. I know I'm the oddball reader out that reads a lot of this stuff,
Mhm.
but when your female dialogue is so authentic, like I really love it. That's a standout thing for me as a reader when the female dialogue by a male author is authentic and I feel that emotion. I love that. But I got to ask, does your wife read it too? Does she help
Uh,
you get that right?
well, I'll be honest with you. She reads it when it's in print.
Does she?
Yeah, she waits till it's published. You got to remember, so as a kindergarten teacher, who was I around 95% of my time
Right.
in college? Who was I around 95% of the time in all the schools? I was surrounded by women. And, I mean, it was, I've been able to talk to and, tolerate some, be friends with some, work with lots, and have had a very good, man, sampling is the wrong word, but I've had the experience of working around women my entire life. And so that does not by any means make me an expert. I don't know what you're feeling or thinking on the inside. Don't get me wrong. But, you go with your gut, and, being a teacher, being a nurturer, there's some aspects that kind of, cross pollinate, if you will. And so if I come across in the story and you enjoy the female characters, that's a huge plus for me. If I've got something wrong, on all my business cards, I got my phone number, I got my email address. I am not hiding from anybody. In fact, when I was writing when I was writing Deadland, my mom was like, "Aren't you afraid somebody's going to come and get you? You're talking about cartels and stuff." I was like, "Nobody's going to come and get me. We're okay." But my point is, I'm always open to conversation about how I can become a better writer, and especially if I've got something wrong. And I hope I haven't. At least to this date, nobody's really called me out on a glaring issue. But I hope some of your comments were that you enjoyed Raven's dialogue, the things she said, how she acted, the emotions that she portrayed, and her growth from victim to heroine. I mean, she's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I liked watching just in there, reading just in in Deadland. She started speaking for herself
Yeah.
just a little bit. Like you knew that she had been through the trauma, and Cass just had so much respect and patience with
Mhm.
her. And their rapport between the two, it was just so good, so authentic. I absolutely loved it. I
Well,
did.
for me, what's more important in a relationship? I mean, If,
Yeah.
if if the one person I love is unhappy, I'm unhappy, and if I can do anything to help them through whatever it is they're going through, I mean that's my number one job, and
Yeah.
that's why Cass dropped everything and moved the family out to the ranch. Of course, you'll find out in book 2 they do have a son. He goes to Texas A&M. Why not? Because it's my book. I can put him in any school I want to. But I mean, you get these. You have this relationship, and it's my relationship with Raven, not just Cass's. And that sounds kind of weird, but it really is. um People ask me all the time, well, you've got some characters in the book too, like Flint and Ray, and you didn't get whole lot of Ray in Deadland, but you'll meet him in other books that have viewpoints and ways of speaking that, I mean, they're a little inappropriate at times, and their viewpoints aren't what you might call respectable at times. But that's not me, and that's not. But that's life, right? That's
Mhm.
people in the world that you can't shelter your characters from it because we live it every day, But yeah, I mean, Kathy and Michael Gear are really good friends of mine. They're I mean, they've got so many books out. They're so well known, but they're so smart and so giving of their knowledge. And it was Kathy actually that looked me in the eye and she goes, "Chris," she goes, "Cass is good, but Raven, she's your character. She's the one that is really dynamic." And and she just keeps getting better and better throughout the series. And I'm excited. I'm hoping somebody out there will back me up on this. But yeah, the I'm I've enjoyed every minute of those characters. With the Western, I did. So you mentioned I did one with Robert Vaughan. He actually passed away about 18 months ago, and so while it was a kind of a collaboration in the sense that I was to start his story where from book 12 where it left off for book 13, it was a continuation of his legacy, if you will, to keep the Crockett brothers alive, and so that's how I got in on that one.
Will
But
you do any more with that with the Crockett brothers, or
it
is
looks as if the series has been passed off to another author, so
oh
maybe we're trading it around.
okay.
I don't really know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I've got other things that I'm really excited about working on, and
So I
more.
want to get to one stumper of
Yeah.
a question, then we're going to
Uh-oh.
come back to the horror one.
Okay.
So if Cass Callahan and Rowdy ended up in the same story,
Hmm.
who would be more likely to talk their way out of trouble, or who would cause it?
Yeah. Well, that's a really good question. When you have that type of characteristics in your blood, it's probably going to be the same for both of them. And I say that in a very cryptic kind of way. And I'll just put it this way, and I will answer your question. But if you were to read the Rowdy books, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know where Rowdy started. You're gonna learn something, or it's gonna be a oh yeah kind of moment when you realize one very important thing about Rowdy. When book 6 rolls around, something happens to Rowdy that causes him to have to face his past. And in facing his past, something is revealed that you're going to be like, wait a minute. Now, if you move on to the Cass Callahan books, it's going to be extremely apparent right from the bat what I'm saying in regards to characteristics in your blood. That being said, Rowdy is the kind of guy where trouble follows him around. He's quick-witted, he's quick on his feet, he's a good thinker. Cass, I would say, goes looking for trouble because of his job and whatnot. So I would have to say probably Rowdy would be the one to to get into trouble and be able to get out of it using his head, using we'll just call it good choices for lack of a better word. Beyond what Cass could do, only because Cass, again, he confronts what's in front of him. He goes looking for things to solve. And when push comes to shove, he's a very skilled martial artist. He's a very skilled fighter and has training that will allow him, both mental and physical, to get out of pretty much anything.
Okay, so now this, you just recently had the horror novella. It's a Western horror novella.
Yeah, creepy, huh?
Yeah.
That was weird. That was
I
weird.
absolutely loved it. And when I'm reading it, so there are parts of it that are pretty graphic,
Yeah,
which I'm down with that. So I'm okay with it. Um, like I was like, oh, that was my face. I was like,
yeah.
there's one part. What inspired that? Was it the song?
Oh man, I get chills. I really get chills right now, even thinking about it. So, for those of you out there, the story is called "Riders of the Black." It is a short story, a Western horror short story. I was given the opportunity for Texas AuthorCon to submit to their anthology, and I'd never done a horror story before, and that fact that it was a Western, I was like, let's give it a shot. Even if it wasn't Western, I was invited. I'm always about challenging myself to become a better writer, so let's do it. But I got to thinking, what do I go along like a legend, a myth from Texas, and then it hit me, and it wouldn't go away. The story is based on the song "Ghost Riders in the Sky." If you've ever heard the old Western song, when I was young, my dad used to sing that song to me in this low baritone voice. And when I still hear the lyrics, it really gets me going. The brands were still on fire and their hooves were made of steel. Just that rolls into the meat of this like diabolical scene that you're, looking at out the range, the fire in their eyes. Anyway, so I thought to myself, what did those guys do that was so horrible that caused them to be damned to ride for eternity chasing the devil's herd? And so you meet Jasper McCree and what he does in life that causes him to have to pay the penance and fight, or face off with these riders of the black when he dies. And that's probably the easiest, least giving awayist, if I can make up a word, giving awayist, version or explanation give you. It really scared me. It chills me. It does chill me to this day. That's why the dedication says for Western songs and childhood fears, because it lives with me. And I thought, you know what, that's probably the way I want to go, is to tell one of their stories. And it
Do
is a
you
little
find
graphic. There are a couple
it
scenes
is
in there that, but then again, it's a horror story. So I mean,
right?
I will say, I've heard about and I've read a lot of stories that were more on the splatter side of things, and I'm like, I don't. For me, it's about how far can I take my characters and stress the readers out. What is he going to do? Oh God, that is horrible. Oh my God, that is terrible. Without being like, blood got everywhere, it got in his teeth, and it's in his face
Yeah,
and in his eye. I mean, we don't need all that. I will never ever write a scene where a woman is taken advantage of, to put it lightly. Now, there may be insinuation, there may be leadings, but the act will never ever happen in any of my writing. But that being said, I mean, whether it's a male character, a female character, and then it's a horror story, and they're a victim, I decided to push the envelope just a tad with some of these, and it was squeamish to write. It's hard to write. I read a lot of Stephen King when I was young, and boy, he didn't spare anybody.
right.
And as I think as a good writer, you have to kind of have that same thinking. You might have your favorite people, but should they be spared all the time? That's not really the way things should go. In fact, the manuscript I'm working on today, I kind of had a moment because I killed off a beloved character, and it was so sad. Won't tell you who. Anyway, you got to read through the Rowdy's books to get to Rowdy 7 when it comes out next spring to find out.
Did you like the challenge of switching it up though, from even just the novella, or just the horror part, the novella part? Like, did you? Because I think for a reader, a novella seems to be such a challenge, because I'm either going to be left empty, or I'm going to be satisfied in a few pages.
Hmm.
Like, that was a banger. That gave me what I wanted, and yours did.
Oh,
So
good.
did you find it challenging, because you have to use so few words
Well, I
to,
mean, storytelling is what you make of it, right? I mean, when I'm telling stories to my kids in class years and years ago, we had a limited amount of time, of ways to tell stories. When you're writing a novel, you've got, 80 to 90,000 words to get everything out that you want. It's just a very simple matter of beginning, middle, and problem solution. If you can put those elements into your writing, and you can make it 5,000 words, 10,000 words, you can make it a full blown novel. For me, I'm not going to say as simple as that, but those are the kind of the parameters that I set myself by. What's the problem? How are we going to fix it? How do we get there? And everything else just kind of falls in place. I have a kind of a mental note that, okay, these things have to wrap up in a certain amount of time. This has to happen so we get character from point A to point B, or we take out this character, or this character gets you know jumps off a cliff, or is pushed, or whatever.
Mhm.
It is a challenge, and like I said, I've never written a horror before, and so why not? There's. I heard early on, when I go to these conferences and whatnot, and read on the forums, and one of the things is people like, write what you know. Well, okay, but if I've never killed a person, so I don't know that, right? But I mean, that's extreme. But my thing, I was never a police officer. I was never a law enforcement. But I'll tell you what I did do. I talked to every single one you could imagine. I had friends that were sheriff deputies here in town. Um, my kids would just kind of do this when we're eating dinner somewhere, and DPS would walk in and have the table next to us, or sheriffs would walk in, and inevitably I'd pull my card out and be like, "Excuse me, can I ask you a quick question?" I said, "I want to preface this with, I'm an author. This is what I'm writing about. I want to get things right. Here's the scene." Um, I talked to the chief of police out in Cibolo, Texas last year about a certain scene in one of the books for the Cass series, because procedure is so important. If you are in the military, or if you are, in law enforcement, and you're reading my book, I want you to be able to say, okay, that's how we do it. Or if not, I can buy that. I can suspend just a touch of disbelief, but that's good versus, you know, just something that's completely off the wall for me.
So now that you're no longer in the classroom and that you're full-time writing, how does your day, like your writing process, how does that go?
Yeah, sure thing. So when I'm in the thick of a contractor story, I'm a really big routine oriented writer. I don't always come up. You can see kind of this little portion of my office here, but I get up, you know, having worked out of the house for 23 years, that routine of getting up and leaving is really what helps me most days get jump started. So I'll get up, I'll go to a couple different restaurants I enjoy on the same day of the week. I get there right as they open at 7 in the morning. It's always Larry's on Monday. It's always Bob's on Wednesdays. Lunchtime rolls around on Fridays, and I'm over at Lone Star Saloon, sitting upstairs. I get the whole second. It's kind of like a balcony overlook, but it's very quiet. It's very I just like the setting. I like being out, and you know, I'll go eat breakfast. I'll read a little bit. In fact, I'm fixing to. I'm gonna little plug here. That I was talking about the Gears. I'm fixing to read Buffalo Justice by the Gears. I'll read a chapter or two. It gets me in the right mindset, and then next thing you know, I'm off in writing. I don't outline. You know, some people say, "Are you a plotter or a pantser?" I'm a pantser through and through. It means I just get down and I write the movie that's in my head. I write the lines. I write the words. And you can go back and edit things later. But for me, it's about discovering what I'm telling as I'm telling it. Sometimes, you know, sometimes the story goes in a little bit of different direction than I originally thought. But the ending is always there. The main problem is always there, and it's not like I just go and you know, say, what am I going to write today and do it. I've got a plan in my head of the story, but how I get there is kind of a fun journey along the way. But that's what I'll do in the morning. I'll usually write till about 9, 10 o'clock. Hop home. That's when I come upstairs in the office. I'll try to write a little bit more until noon. Go downstairs, grab some lunch, and this is where it becomes kind of a problem. So you know, 12:30 rolls around. I'll go downstairs, eat with the puppy dog, sit on the couch, and I'll watch The Big Bang Theory, or I'll put news on. And next thing I know, some days 12:30 turns into, oh no, it's 3 o'clock. So I've just lost part of the day, if I'm being brutally honest. So it's a challenge to get back up and keep going. You know, goal wise, I try to hit 2,000 words a day. I figure if I can do 1,000 by noon and 1,000 by 6, I'm in a pretty good spot. Truth be told, if I just did 1,000 a day, that would be enough also. If you think about it time wise, 1,000 words a day, and you know, in a year you've got 4 books if you're writing constantly every day. For some days, you know, I'm getting 500 words. Some days I'm getting 4,000. So it just depends on if I'm on a roll, if the dialogue's there, if the fight scene's going, if the action is really ramping up. But if I'm writing about, you know, a transition scene where, you know, Cass or Rowdy's got to get off his horse and go into the saloon and look for somebody and then get back outside, or, you know, get in the patrol car and those are so boring for me, because, you know, I've action, 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 and then, but you have to have some filler here and there, right, to kind of transition to the next part. And so those are a little bit more tough, but I'll struggle through those and get to a point where I can, you know, have a car chase or a fist fight or just an impending doom about to happen, you know, that brightens thing up, and then the words cards start flowing easily again.
Who would you say is your biggest literary influence?
Oh goodness, that's a good one. And I say it's a good one because for me, it's so many. I didn't know I wanted to be an author until I was 47, you know, and so all the books that I were reading prior to that were all children's books. Right now, the Gears are a huge influence to me because they're friends of mine. They're in my pocket. Craig Johnson, and I say in my pocket in a nice way because I know I can count on them. Craig Johnson, the author of the Longmire series, he is also a very good friend. And asked me 2 years ago if I could say that, I'd probably spit because it's it's a really a big treat to call him my friend. We were just in Tulsa together this weekend for the Will Rogers Medallions Awards, and hearing what he says and listening to his journey and getting the advice through the small conversations we have together that, you know, nobody else are privy to has been very important to me, to the outlook of my career, to know where I want to go next, and just to say, look, man, keep it going. You know, it's always, his author's life is very lonely. You know, Sure, you have friends that are like, "Oh, good job, keep it up," but when it comes right down to it, who do you complain to that you've had a bad day? Who do you celebrate with that actually knows what you've gone through to be successful without coming across as being, braggish? It's it's one of those deals where you've got to find a good solid group, right, that are in similar situations, but we're all spread out throughout the country, and so that becomes tough. So the Kathy Michael Gear, Craig Johnson for personal connections. Louis L'Amour paved the way for all the Western riders, and Zane Grey before him, and there's been so many. That I can't narrow it down to just one, because I had Chris Enns. She's a New York Times bestselling author, writes women's nonfiction of the West. I got reached out to this wonderful lady before I even had Rowdy really going, and she took time out of her day, about 40 minutes out of her time, and just talk to me. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to go. These are the people you need to talk to. Call me anytime, whatever you need, blah, blah, blah. Keep at it. Keep working hard. Go to conferences, talk to editors, talk to everybody in the business you possibly can, because while you may not fit with what they're looking for at the time, you're going to take bits and pieces of information from everybody that you've learned and be able to kind of construct your own playbook, so that when you do meet that right person, you'll know what to say, you'll have the right tools, and you'll be able to look successful, because then you will hopefully be able to drive towards being successful.
So you mentioned several Western authors, and then you mentioned watching the movies with your dad. If you
Sure.
could pick one Western legend, whether it's on the big screen or in a book, and you could ride alongside of them for the day, who would you pick?
Oh man, it probably will sound cliche to some, but if I could pick one, it would definitely be the Duke, John Wayne. I mean, it's just he's the who I mean, there are others, right? But he would be the one. Not only because of how he portrayed his characters, but because I've met people that acted with him and know how he was behind the camera as well as in front of it. I had the opportunity in New Orleans to hang with Craig Johnson again, like I said, but had dinner with A. Martinez, who was in the Long March series and in a billion other things through Hollywood. I met a gentleman by the name of Al Barker, who played Fats in The Cowboys, which was one of his movies later on in his career, and I believe the very first movie that he was killed in, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody will call me out on that if I'm wrong. But being able to talk to Al, now he was a preteen, a young teen when this movie was being filmed, and just the way that he described John Wayne taking those younger kids under his wing, treating them more like a father might versus a big name actor on a set. Now, the character wise, John Wayne's just, but his characters were just a lot of fun. If I had to pick one, he would definitely be it. The trouble he causes, the people he saves, the action he gets into. There's one scene in Big Jake where he starts a bar fight to cause a distraction, and he's fighting this monstrous guy, and he goes up there and he's like, "Ew," and they punch, 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 and John Wayne gets his bell rung, and the guy comes up on a one last crit, and he says, "Hold up, aren't you from Nacogdoches?" And the guy goes, I'm not from Nacogdoches. And John Wayne looks at the camera and goes, "Strange," and walks off. And the guy's like, "But I ain't never been to Nacogdoches." I mean, it's a little comedy, a little fist fight. So I don't know. He'd be the one.
I didn't even
Sorry.
stop you, and I tried so hard tonight.
Yeah, 100 miles an hour.
So what is so we know, let's see, we've got tell us what's coming next for
Yeah,
you. I
sure
know
thing.
you've got the audio book for the first Rowdy, right?
Oh man, so excited. Yeah, so I pulled the. Can I just do a little show and tell real quick?
Yep.
It's real quick. So I showed you where Rowdy One came from. When I first got into it, I decided to self-publish. This is what Rowdy One looked like. A little while along the line, went to a bookstore, and they're like, "That's ugly. We need to be able to see it across the bookstore." So I listened to them, because I listen to the people that know what they're talking about, and decide to, you know, buy into it, not buy into it. But I decided to buy into this because it came straight from the bookseller. So we went right to book two, which is the second release, if you will. So this is what same book, just different color looks like. And so when I finally finished and published with Wolfpack, this is what it looks like now. And this is what the audiobook cover will look like as well. Of course, square figure, Rowdy, Wild and Mean, Sharp and Keen, book one, name at the bottom. It is actually being released by Blackstone Audio on
Oh,
December 30th. Let me tell you, I feel like I can speak to perseverance. I've wanted audio for my books forever, and was able to get the audio rights reverted to me it's about 2 years ago now, and reached out to Blackstone through their general, contact me here email. And I never heard back. About 2 months later, I reached out to him again, and I did get a little ping. Hey, um, sorry we didn't get back to you. Things are busy. Thanks for being, keeping up with us. We'll take it under consideration. So yay, didn't say no. A little while longer. It goes by 3 or 4 months. Don't hear from him. Ping him back again. Keep the conversation rolling. It got to the point where I was able to have a Zoom meeting with them in August, and I thought to myself, if I can get on camera with people and speak directly to them, I can explain in better terms than an email will ever do how important the series is, how it will be received, and what my intentions are to help make it a success. Anyway, long story short, they signed me. They signed for book one. We're going to see how it does. The audio will come out in, like I said, December 30th. They're doing a CD that will come out February 28th. The narrator, I don't know if I'm allowed to say who the narrator is yet, so I'll just keep that under wraps. I think you probably go online and find out. But anyway, really pleased with the narrator. Looking forward to hearing all the characters come out through him and other things. So Rowdy 7, I was mentioned earlier, is actually going to be released later this spring as well. I'm just finishing that up. Should be to the publisher by Friday. Truth be told, I'm a little behind in that, but life happens and my family comes first in every aspect of my life, and luckily I have a little bit of there's a good relationship that we can kind of give and take on there, and as long as you're communicating, I think everything is going to be just fine. But that's going to be turned in. And as far as anything else goes, I mean, give me a challenge and I'll see if I can do it. We met at BoucherCon. I did pitch a school-based thriller at Thriller Fest this last year. I'm very excited about that. Gotten some nice conversation on both sides of the coin. I've got two other stories that are not Westerns that I'm working on. To hopefully find a home here in the next couple of years. So you just never can tell what I'm going to write. Hopefully, whatever it is, it's good and worth your while.
are you going to Calgary?
I don't know. I'm not afraid of the cold. It's that's kind of a hot. I'm not even afraid of the distance. I just haven't made my mind up yet. I'm going to Thriller Fest next year. I'll be doing WWA and Will Rogers, so a fourth conference next year might be one too many. But I mean, maybe you'll see me there after all. I'm not
I
sure.
keep thinking that I can't take my books with me because I'll have to fly in. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know what I'm going to do.
go to Thriller Fest.
And it's New York.
I know, but look, listen, BoucherCon's great. Every conference you go to, right, you're going to hopefully be able to bring something positive back from. I had never been to BoucherCon before. 2 years ago, went to Nashville for starters, and then of course New Orleans, and in between went to Thriller Fest. And just the connections that I was able to make. I mean, we met. I mean, by chance, right? I mean, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that was the coolest thing. But the people I've met, the connections I've made, and what I've learned in the sessions have been so important. And I was just blown away by Thriller Fest. It showed that authors, no matter their experience, no matter their level in their profession, every single one of them, from Greg Hurwitz all the way, I even had a really nice chat with John Grisham. I mean, that's how open it was. You got to be professional, polite. You can't be like a fan going up and be like, oh, can I meet you? You've just you got to be human, right? You got to be a person. But for me, it was just a great experience meeting all these people. And I look forward to the next ones. And now you talk about BoucherCon in Calgary. Now I think maybe I want to go. Not that I don't, but why'd you do that?
It's a cool thing that they're, I mean, they're fun. I mean, I talked to Craig Johnson just like he was like, hey,
He
you
is.
don't even know me, and I'm like your friend now. So it's
No, he's
cool.
as genuine as they come. He's a straight shooter. He'll tell you like it is, and we need more of that in life,
Yeah.
right? Anyway, we just need that.
Well, I think you've answered all my questions, and I didn't even stump you, and
You
I
didn't even
tried.
stump me once. Okay, well, that's okay. You might be like, God, this is gonna be the longest video ever. This guy will not stop talking.
No, but hopefully I can get it saved now. So don't sign off yet. And make sure that I can get it saved
Let me
before
get my
we.
shirt in there one real quick. I did a live stint with They did a morning show in San Antonio about a year ago. It was Good Day SA, and was able to go in and quick little snippets on the book. And I had a flannel over my Rowdy shirt, and right at the very end I did this whole reveal thing so everybody could see my Rowdy shirt, and the cameras turned off on me. So I missed my chance. So here's my chance now. Hashtag read Rowdy.
So do you have a whole merch line?
Yeah, more for fun than anything else. I have a shop on Teespring that you can get shirts and whatever, but honestly, don't buy them. I mean, if you feel like it, go ahead. But they're just they make them so expensive. I mean, I don't even. It's not about the money. It was just about the enjoyment for me to be creative again and have some fun stuff out there. But yeah, Teespring has everything from Rowdy shirts to cups to bags to whole nine yards. But these shirts, like the hashtag Read Rowdy, I've got some that say "Time to Get Rowdy," that type of thing. I make them
Mhm.
myself. I bought the
Oh,
press. I design everything, and I'll press them all. But it just got. I mean, I just don't have enough time now to do that. I was, for before an event, I'd press like 50 shirts and I'd give them away at the event.
yeah.
But if anybody, I don't know how far this is reaching out, but we'll just go ahead and plug this. If anybody's in Tucson for the Tucson Festival of Books, come look me up. I'll be there with Ian Griffin. We have our own booth. It'll just be the two of us. If you're not familiar with the Tucson Festival of Books, it is by far the biggest, best book festival in the country that you will ever go to. I haven't been to all of them, so it's the biggest one I've ever been to. But it's on the campus at Arizona State, and there are literally a couple 100,000 people that go through there between Saturday and Sunday. It is gigantic. You'll have often opportunities to go listen to authors speak. You're going to need it. The wagon you brought around at BatcherCon is going to be full 10 times over if you end up going. But it is definitely, if you love books, and you can only pick one place to go in the year, the Tucson Festival of Books is where you should go. And if for some
When is
reason you're
it?
seeing this, yeah, it's in Tucson. It's on, let's see, it's in March, I think the 15th and 16th. It's that Saturday, Sunday, right around there, 15th, 16th, I believe.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
All
So
right. Well,
that's that. Yeah.
hopefully, maybe I'll do that one because I looked at West Coast Crime and I thought maybe yeah, no, Left Coast Crime. Was it Left Coast Crime? Yeah, maybe do that one. I don't know.
Well, so I mean, this isn't a conference, but it's an opportunity for, I mean, it's just a festival. Literally,
Yeah.
it's probably as long as two or three football fields, and there are there are booths on 4 rows of booths and intertwined and music and anyway, I I would go with my publisher in years past. They're not attending this year, and so I'm like, I'm not missing it. So I'm forking over the money for a booth, and I just can't miss it. It's so
Yeah.
much. Yeah,
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we've
I
got it.
appreciate it.
We're going to try and we're going to see if I get this right. I don't. All right.
All right,
Thank
well,
you.
we'll talk soon.